Hello, today I'm going to show you how you can turn a bunch of flowers into a whole load of plants for your garden. I'm Zorab and this is Byther Farm. Here in Wales, January the 25th is St Dwynwen's Day, and that's very similar to February the 14th, St Valentine's Day. It's a day when people in love mark the occasion. So here is a hand tie of flowers. They've got water in the bottom that keeps them fresh, and I think these are probably the best ones to use for this particular project. You're not going to need much equipment for this, but you will need some snips, some secateurs or some scissors. You'll need some plant labels, whether they are wooden ones or plastic ones, and you'll need something to write on them with. I like to use a jam jar with some water in it. This had homemade blackcurrant jam, but any glass jar would do, or even a plastic container. So that's cold water. I have a cloth on hand for spills. And you're also going to need some flower pots and some compost. Now, it doesn't matter whether that's bought-in compost or homemade compost, whether it's a leaf mould, whatever it is, it's not actually going to make very much difference. The only thing I would say is try and make sure it's peat-free. So I need to start by dismantling this bouquet. So this has got a ribbon tied around it. I'm just going to tease that open. I don't actually know what's going on inside here, so I might have to suddenly rush off to the sink and empty the water out into the sink. So in this particular one, there is a container here. It's a shallow container with a sort of shaper thing. It is full of water. I'm just going to go and pour this out and take the cellophane off the bottom. If you've been given a hand tie where there wasn't a water container at the bottom, or a bouquet sort of laid out flat, this is the point at which you'll get your flowers. You need to take all the wrapping off. If I was putting these flowers into a deep vase or into a formal arrangement, I would be removing the lower leaves. You don't want to do that for this purpose. So what I've got in here, I chose this because I love the colours. So there are some chrysanthemums, this very lovely dark burgundy one and a yellow with a toning burgundy centre. So there's some of those. There's this beautiful orange rose. I think this colour is just exquisite. So I'm separating these out into the different flower groups and colours. Here is some, I call this St John's wort. It's a hypericum. It produces yellow flowers and then these very lovely seed heads. This is a gerbera. It's part of the daisy family. Again, it's this beautiful orange colour. And then here is some foliage. Now I have got to guess. It could be any number of things. So I'm going to carry on through and just separate these all out. So these lovely flowers here, I'm not going to be able to use for taking cuttings. So these will go into a vase. And likewise, this very lovely piece of eucalyptus is unlikely to take from cuttings. Somewhere along the line, I heard that you can't take eucalyptus cuttings. There's something in them that stops them rooting. We could give it a go, but I'm not. I'm going to put those with those, make a very small arrangement in a vase and enjoy those. And anything I cut off, I'm saving to go into the compost heap. So these are just going to go into some water for now. So what I've got is 2 lots of chrysanthemums. This greenery, which now I'm looking at it, I'm wondering if it's a rhododendron or azalea. I think that's probably what it is. I've got some roses and I've got the hypericum St John's wort. Because the process is almost the same for each of the flowers, I'm going to start with the chrysanthemums. What we're looking for is a section that I can take a cutting from. Because it's a bouquet and it's been grown for the flowers, we actually have to be a bit brutal and cut all the flowers off. But don't cut them off right by the heads. Take them lower down, and then you can use these in a small flower arrangement. And then at the top, I'm actually going to remove these as a clump, and I'm going to cut just by a leaf. So I've got the top bit, and now I've got this stem. I'm just going to check, there's one more flower bud there, and I'm going to remove that. Oh, two. So what I've got now is a leafy stem. This bottom part looks a bit crushed, but there's no need to panic about that. We'll just remove those bottom leaves. Till there are 2, 3, maybe 4 leaves. I'm going to take it down to 3 leaves on the top. And then I'm going to cut just below a leaf joint. So where the leaf would come out from the stem, I'm going to cut just below that. And that can now be used as a cutting. Now I could easily have got 2 cuttings from this stem and just left a shorter amount. I quite like the longer stem. It means more of it can go into a pot, more of it's going to be in contact with soil. And I might even cut these leaves down by half. And I'm doing that so there's less evaporation of moisture from the leaves. Because at this point you've got no flowers to show you what that is. And don't forget to use a separate container for each flower colour and flower type, and don't forget to label them. So this now needs to go straight into some water to have a drink. And once I've prepared all the stems, then I'll put them into some compost. With the foliage that's there as a filler and to help make the bouquet look pretty, it's exactly the same process. So we're going to cut off the top part, use these 3 leaves, and cut here a leaf joint. On these woody plants, this is more like taking a hardwood cutting, but it is exactly the same process. So I'm going to cut it just below a leaf joint there, and I'm going to take the top off and use that in my little mini flower arrangement. And then I've got this to take a cutting from. Now I could remove those central leaves and do 1 leaf cut below this leaf joint, 1 leaf when I've cut below a leaf joint here. So I could get 2 cuttings from it, but actually I'm just going to do 1. So removing that leaf, and that is the portion that I'm going to put into compost. You can use a rooting powder or a rooting solution if you want to. I feel like it's just as quick and easy not to use a rooting agent. This foliage again is like taking a hardwood cutting. I'm going to take 2 from here. I'm going to take below a leaf joint there, and then again around here, finding a leaf joint, she says, there. I'll remove this lower leaf. I've now got 2 potential hardwood cuttings there, and these, rather than putting them into compost in a pot, I'm going to push these direct into the ground outside. Now we are due to have -3 centigrade overnight tonight, so in the meantime I'm going to put these into water, not all the way up the leaves, but water up the stems. And then in a couple of days' time, when the ground has warmed a little bit, I'll push these straight into the ground. I'll remember to label them to say where they came from, so they'll get labelled Bouquet 2022. Question mark, because that means that I don't actually know what colour or whether it's an azalea or a rhododendron or indeed something else. Now this is ready to go in some compost. I'm just going to push it in gently. So I'm putting it around the outside rather than the centre because apparently it gets slightly warmer on the outside. And then I'm just going to push the compost very gently I'm firming it as gently as can be, literally just to stop it rocking around. And now I'm wondering if maybe I need to cut these leaves back by half as well. So I'm only cutting the lower two back by half. I'll leave the top one. This needs a little bit of water, not very much at this time of year because it's cold. You don't want it sitting in cold, soggy compost. I do need to label it so I don't forget what it is. And then this is going to go onto a windowsill during the day. Now there are holes in the base for drainage, so I'm going to pop it into a container. This used to have mushrooms in it. Very useful as a container to go on the windowsill. But it's really important to remember in the evenings, particularly if you draw your curtains, to bring them in from the windowsill, because if you've got them between the curtains and the windows, that's going to be a very cold pocket. All you're going to do is chill your plants, so bring them into warmth. They will probably need to stay indoors until a risk of frost is past, not because they're tender, but because you're asking them to create roots and to develop a new plant at a time of year when really most things are quite dormant. On your chrysanthemum, just make sure that any leaves or any flower stems are removed. And again, push it into the soil. I don't want that bottom leaf touching the soil at all. There we go. And again, all I'm doing is just very gently firming the soil so it has a bit of contact and it won't wiggle. And that needs a label too. I have successfully taken rose cuttings very many times. I've made a video of some of the ways that you can take rose cuttings. Taking them from a bouquet is exactly the same process as I show in this video.